Brexit trade talks would be best concluded without an agreement in a bid to stop the UK from further wrecking the Brussels bloc, EU negotiators have been warned. The warning comes from former Irish Prime Minister John Bruton, who told Euronews he believes Eurosceptic members of the Conservative Party in the UK are on a mission to wreck the European Union. Mr. Bruton said, "There is an issue of trust. There is an issue of defining what is it that the British really want. Do the British actually want a no-deal Brexit? There are some who would suggest they do. Though some people in the Conservative Party want to wreck the European Union. I've seen certain Tory MPs saying we must get Brexit right because we want others to follow us, because we want to set an example in the way we deal with Brexit so that others will leave the European Union. Well, if that's the approach of the British government, then it would be better to have no deal." Downing Street has stressed the UK will be prepared to trade with the European Union without a formal agreement, as German Chancellor Angela Merkel called on Brussels to step up preparations for a no-deal scenario. Talks are continuing in Brussels between the teams led by Boris Johnson's Europe advisor David Frost and the EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier, aimed at reaching a deal which could be implemented before the current post-Brexit arrangements expire at the end of the year. But Mrs. Merkel suggested progress so far had been very limited and the EU must be ready for the possibility that a deal doesn't materialize. Germany has assumed the rotating EU Council presidency for the next 6 months, giving the Chancellor an influential role in the final phase of the Brexit process. In a sign of the strained relations between the two sides, the UK failed to meet a deadline for submitting equivalence assessments on financial services regulations which could help determine the city's access to European markets and vice versa. Whitehall sources suggested that the demands made by the EU in 1,000 pages of questionnaires were much broader than the equivalence criteria set out in legislation and did not recognise the unique starting point between the two sides, which had been, until January 31, members of the same trading bloc.